The unexpected envoy. The starship Horizon's Edge drifted silently through the vast expanse of the Andromeda Cluster, a testament to humanity's first genuine interstellar diplomatic mission. Commander Zara Rodriguez sat in the captain's chair, her posture relaxed yet alert, a contradictory stance that seemed to embody the human spirit of calm preparedness. The alien diplomatic delegation from the Crystalline Confederation watched her with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed apprehension. Their translucent, prismatic bodies shifted colors continuously, a biological response to emotional fluctuation that made their current state of nervous anticipation painfully obvious. Chief Diplomat Kral, the lead representative of the Crystalline Confederation, had spent decades studying human communication protocols. Yet nothing in his extensive research could have prepared him for the reality of an actual human diplomat. Commander Rodriguez, Kral's melodic voice resonated through the ship's communication system. Our preliminary data suggests humans are categorized as a Class 12 Deathworld species. Your planet's environmental conditions are statistically improbable for complex life development. Zara turned, a slight smirk playing on her lips. Statistically improbable? We prefer to think of it as statistically fascinating. The ship's secondary communication officer, Lieutenant Marcus Williams, suppressed a chuckle. The alien's confusion was palpable, radiating through the ship like a tangible energy. Kral's crystalline structure flickered, the equivalent of a nervous twitch. Our research indicates your species has survived multiple extinction-level events. How is this possible? Adaptation, Zara responded simply. Humans don't just survive. We thrive in conditions that would obliterate most known life forms. To demonstrate, she casually reached into a small container and pulled out what appeared to be a pepper, a Carolina Reaper, to be precise. The alien delegates recoiled instantaneously, their sensory appendages quivering in collective horror. What are you doing? Kral's voice reached a pitch that would have shattered glass on most ships. Zara took a deliberate bite of the pepper, her expression remaining unchanged. The Carolina Reaper, known as one of the hottest peppers in human cultivation, would have caused most terrestrial organisms intense pain. For Zara, it was merely a midday snack. The crystalline delegates watched in stunned silence. Their biological understanding suggested this should be an act of self-harm. Instead, Commander Rodriguez displayed no signs of distress. Spicy food, she explained, noting their shocked expressions. Just one of the many ways humans challenge our own biological limitations. Lieutenant Williams couldn't resist adding, you should see what we do for fun. Extreme sports would make your scientific journals read like horror novels. Kral's communication implant struggled to process the data. Humans were defying every known biological and evolutionary paradigm. They consumed substances that would incapacitate most species, survived environments considered lethal, and seemed to actively seek out dangerous experiences. Your species intentionally creates scenarios of potential self-destruction, the alien diplomat asked, his crystalline form pulsing with a mixture of fear and fascination. Zara laughed, a sound that seemed to both unsettle and intrigue the alien delegation. We call it pushing boundaries. Innovation doesn't happen in comfort zones. As the Horizon's Edge continued its journey, the alien delegates began to realize that everything they thought they knew about intelligent life was about to be comprehensively rewritten. Humans were not just another species in the galactic catalog, they were an entirely different category of existence. The mission had barely begun, and already the Crystalline Confederation was learning that human unpredictability was not a weakness, but their most profound strength. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of their education about humanity's extraordinary nature. Technological improvisation. The crisis emerged without warning. A massive electromagnetic anomaly had disabled the Horizon's Edge's primary navigation and communication systems, leaving the ship stranded in a remote sector of the Andromeda cluster. The crystalline delegates watched in mounting panic as human crew members seemed almost eerily calm. Commander Zara Rodriguez stood in the engineering bay, surrounded by a chaotic array of seemingly unrelated equipment. Lieutenant Marcus Williams was dismantling communication consoles, while engineer Rashid Khan was carefully examining what appeared to be a collection of personal electronic devices. KRAL's crystalline form pulsed with anxiety. Your primary systems are non-functional. By all rational calculations, you should be experiencing critical system failure. Zara didn't even look up. Rational calculations don't account for human creativity. What happened next would become a legendary tale of technological improvisation that would be discussed in alien academic circles for generations. Using a combination of personal smartphones, tablet computers, military-grade signal boosters, and what appeared to be a modified coffee maker, the human crew began constructing an impossible solution. Marcus began cannibalizing circuit boards, creating a makeshift communication array that defied every known principle of quantum communication. "We're going to build our own communication network," he explained to the bewildered alien delegation. Piece by piece, device by device. Rashid was doing something equally remarkable. He was using the ship's 3D printing technology, combined with components from personal fitness trackers and navigation watches, to recreate critical ship navigation components. "Humans have this saying," Zara told KRAL, who was watching the process with a mixture of horror and fascination. "Duct tape and hope is sometimes our most advanced technological strategy." The crystalline delegates had access to centuries of advanced technological knowledge. Their own ships would require months of repair in such a situation, involving entire teams of specialized technicians and complex restoration protocols. These humans were rebuilding critical ship systems using what appeared to be random personal electronics and an alarming amount of improvisational engineering. Within hours, what should have been a catastrophic system failure became nothing more than a minor inconvenience. The Horizon's Edge hummed back to life, its systems cobbled together from what any other species would have considered junk technology. KRAL's translation matrix struggled to process what he had witnessed. "How is this possible? Your solution violates at least 17 fundamental principles of quantum engineering." Marcus grinned, wiping engine grease from his hands. "We don't really believe in impossible. We just haven't figured it out yet." The improvised solution wasn't just functional, it was more efficient than the original systems. The ship's navigation was now more responsive, its communication array had expanded bandwidth, and they had accomplished this using what most technological civilizations would consider obsolete components. In human culture, Zara explained to the still-shocked alien delegation, necessity isn't just the mother of invention. It's the grandmother, grandfather, and entire extended family of innovation. KRAL's crystalline structure shifted through multiple colors, a sign of profound cognitive recalibration. These humans weren't just surviving. They were transforming challenges into opportunities with a speed and creativity that defied conventional understanding. As the Horizon's Edge resumed its journey, the alien delegates realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring civilization. They were something entirely different, a species that turned limitations into launching pads for extraordinary achievement. The mission had only just begun, and already the galaxy was being redefined. Survival against impossible odds. The planet loomed before them, a hellscape of volcanic activity, toxic atmosphere, and environmental conditions that would obliterate most known life forms. What should have been a routine planetary survey had turned into a fight for survival when the Horizon's Edge suffered a critical hull breach during atmospheric entry. Commander Zara Rodriguez led the emergency landing team, which now found themselves stranded on a world that made Earth's most extreme environments look like a comfortable vacation spot. The crystalline delegates had been evacuated to a secure observation point, watching in horrified fascination. KRAL's communication array crackled with disbelief. "Your biosuits cannot withstand these conditions for more than 37 standard minutes. Extraction is impossible for at least 12 stellar cycles." Zara checked her equipment, her movements methodical and calm. We'll see about that. The planet's surface was a nightmare of constant geological activity. Sulfuric acid rain pelted down at temperatures that would melt most metals. Electromagnetic storms created constant visual interference, and the ground itself seemed to be in a state of perpetual violent motion. Lieutenant Marcus Williams began taking inventory of their limited supplies. Engineer Rashid Khan was already modifying their protective gear, using components from their survival kits in ways that defied the original manufacturer's designs. "We need to create a mobile shelter," Rashid announced. "And we'll need to do it with what we've got." What they had was surprisingly little: damaged emergency equipment, personal survival gear, and an incredible amount of human determination. Over the next few hours, the human team did something that would become legendary. They constructed a mobile habitat using fragments of their damaged ship's hull plating, personal electronic devices repurposed as environmental sensors, survival rations compressed and modified into makeshift construction materials, a combination of chemical treatments from their medical kits to create temporary protective coatings. KRAL watched in stunned disbelief as the humans essentially created a living, adaptable shelter in an environment that should have killed them within minutes. "Your species has no right to exist," the alien diplomat muttered, his crystalline form vibrating with a mix of terror and respect. "By all known scientific principles, you should be extinct." Zara overheard the comment and laughed. "Science is just a set of rules waiting to be broken." As night fell, if one could call the constant volcanic eruptions and electromagnetic storms night, the human team continued to adapt. They took turns maintaining the shelter, monitoring environmental conditions, and preparing for potential challenges. Rashid had rigged their communication devices to create a low-frequency warning system that would alert them to geological instabilities. Marcus was converting their remaining power cells into a more efficient energy source. Zara was mapping potential escape routes and resource locations. What should have been a death sentence became nothing more than another problem to solve. On the third day, when the Horizon's Edge's long-range sensors finally located them, the landing team was not just alive, they were in remarkably good condition. Their makeshift shelter had weathered conditions that would have destroyed entire civilizations. KRAL's final transmission before the extraction summed up the collective alien perspective: humans are not a species. They are a force of nature. As they lifted off from the hellish planet, Zara looked back at the landscape that had tried to kill them. Just another day at the office. The galaxy was learning that humanity's most dangerous weapon was not its technology, its weapons, or its intelligence. It was their absolutely refusal to accept defeat. Cultural complexity and emotional intelligence. The diplomatic station orbiting the neutral zone was a powder keg of interspecies tension. 3 separate alien civilizations, the Crystalline Confederation, the Quantum Harmonics, and the Silicon Collective, had been locked in a centuries-old conflict that threatened to erupt into total warfare. Enter the human delegation, led by Commander Zara Rodriguez, who arrived with nothing more than a reputation for unpredictability and a seemingly impossible mission: prevent an imminent galactic war. KRAL, who had witnessed human capabilities firsthand, watched with a mixture of hope and skepticism. The alien delegates were prepared for traditional diplomatic negotiations, complex mathematical exchanges of territory, resource allocation, and strategic positioning. What they weren't prepared for was human diplomacy. Zara's approach was unlike anything the alien civilizations had ever encountered. Instead of presenting mathematical models or strategic overlays, she began by sharing stories. Personal narratives that seemed completely unrelated to the conflict at hand. She spoke of Earth's own history, of civilizations that had overcome centuries of conflict, of reconciliation movements, of the complex process of understanding different perspectives. She shared tales of human cultural diversity, of how a single planet could contain thousands of languages, belief systems, and ways of life, yet still find common ground. The Silicon Collective's representatives were the first to show confusion. Their communication was purely logical, based on computational exchanges and precise data points. Emotions were considered a computational error to be eliminated. "Your approach lacks logical coherence," their primary negotiator stated. "Narrative has no strategic value in conflict resolution." Zara simply smiled. "Narrative is the most powerful strategic tool we have." Lieutenant Marcus Williams began to explain the human concept of empathy, not as a weakness, but as a sophisticated form of intelligence that allowed for complex problem-solving. He demonstrated how understanding an opponent's perspective could be more powerful than any weapon. Rashid Khan contributed by explaining how human conflict resolution often involved finding shared values, rather than focusing on differences. He shared examples from Earth's own diplomatic history, how former enemies had become allies through understanding and mutual respect. The turning point came unexpectedly. The quantum harmonics lead diplomat suffered what appeared to be an emotional breakdown, a rare occurrence in their typically controlled society. Instead of viewing this as a vulnerability, the human team responded with genuine compassion. Zara approached the distressed diplomat, not with formal protocols, but with a simple human gesture of support. She listened. Truly listened. It was a radical act of communication that defied all known diplomatic strategies. Over the next several hours, the human delegation did something unprecedented. They didn't solve the conflict through traditional means. They facilitated a dialogue that allowed each civilization to truly hear one another's underlying fears, hopes, and concerns. KRAL watched in amazement as centuries of conflict began to unravel, not through force or mathematical precision, but through the messy, complicated process of genuine understanding. "Humans do not see barriers," KRAL later reported to his superiors. "They see bridges waiting to be built." By the mission's end, what had seemed like an impossible diplomatic nightmare transformed into a framework for potential peace. The three civilizations hadn't just agreed to a treaty, they had begun to understand each other. The galaxy was learning that human diplomacy was less about winning and more about connecting. As the human delegation prepared to depart, the alien representatives looked at them with a new understanding. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were unexpected architects of possibility. Technological and strategic brilliance. The Void Plague was unlike anything the galactic community had ever encountered. A mysterious, adaptive technological virus that consumed entire star systems, it had already devoured 3 major civilizations and was rapidly expanding its destructive reach. The Galactic Emergency Council had assembled representatives from every known spacefaring civilization. Their conclusion was unanimous and hopeless: there was no known way to stop the Void Plague. Until the humans arrived. Commander Zara Rodriguez stood before the council, her presentation unlike any diplomatic briefing in galactic history. Where other species would have presented complex mathematical models and technological schematics, she approached the problem with a fundamentally different perspective. "We're going to treat this like a biological system," she explained, pulling up holographic representations that seemed to dance with an organic complexity that defied traditional technological thinking. Lieutenant Marcus Williams and Engineer Rashid Khan flanked her, each holding fragments of what appeared to be a completely improvised solution. They had spent the last 72 hours working without sleep, drawing from disciplines that seemed wildly unrelated: computer science, ecological studies, medical research, and what could only be described as creative problem-solving. KRAL, now a permanent observer to human diplomatic missions, watched with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The human solution was elegant in its audacity. Instead of trying to combat the Void Plague with traditional technological defenses, they proposed to understand it. Not as a technological threat, but as a living, evolving system. Rashid had reverse-engineered the plague's adaptive algorithms using principles borrowed from evolutionary biology. Marcus had developed a communication protocol that could potentially negotiate with the technological entity. Zara had conceived the overall strategy that bound these seemingly impossible approaches together. "We're not going to destroy it," Zara explained to the increasingly bewildered Galactic representatives. "We're going to redirect it." The plan was so unconventional that it bordered on madness. They would create a complex ecological network of technological organisms that would essentially trick the Void Plague into consuming a carefully constructed decoy system. It was part computer science, part biological mimicry, and part pure human imagination. The Silicon Collective's representatives were the first to voice their objections. "This violates 247 fundamental principles of technological interaction," their primary analyst stated. Zara's response was simple. "Good." What followed was a demonstration of human ingenuity that would be studied for generations. Using a combination of quantum computing, adaptive algorithms, and what could only be described as technological ecology, the human team began to construct their solution. They worked with a speed and creativity that left the other civilizations stunned. Entire technological ecosystems were constructed, adapted, and refined in hours, a process that would have taken other species decades. The Void Plague encountered the first of their technological networks and paused. For the first time in its known existence, the destructive technological entity encountered a system it could not immediately comprehend or consume. Days passed. The plague's expansion slowed, then stopped. By the end of the week, the Void Plague was not just contained, it was being studied, understood, potentially even communicated with. KRAL's final report to his superiors was both a warning and a revelation: humans do not see problems. They see puzzles waiting to be solved. The galaxy was learning that human creativity was the most powerful technology of all. Transformation and mutual respect. The Galactic Center of Interspecies Understanding wasn't just a diplomatic installation. It had become something far more profound, a testament to how humanity had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic civilization. Commander Zara Rodriguez stood at the central observation deck, watching as representatives from hundreds of different species moved through the complex. What had once been impossible, multiple civilizations coexisting, communicating, and collaborating, was now a daily reality. KRAL, now the primary liaison between human diplomatic missions and the Galactic Council, approached her. His crystalline form had changed over the years, influenced by decades of interaction with humans. Where once he had been a rigid, purely logical being, he now displayed a complexity that spoke to true understanding. "We were wrong about you," KRAL said, a statement that would have been impossible when they first met. "Completely and utterly wrong." Zara smiled. The journey hadn't been easy. Humanity had gone from being viewed as a potentially dangerous, unpredictable species to becoming the primary architects of galactic cooperation. Their approach, a combination of unbridled creativity, emotional intelligence, and absolute refusal to accept limitations, had transformed how civilizations understood themselves. Lieutenant Marcus Williams was now leading an interspecies research initiative that was rewriting fundamental understanding of technological adaptation. Engineer Rashid Khan had developed communication protocols that allowed species with completely different biological bases to understand one another. The changes ran deeper than just technological or diplomatic achievements. The quantum harmonics had learned to value emotional complexity. The Silicon Collective had discovered the power of creative thinking. The Crystalline Confederation had embraced the concept of adaptive problem-solving. And humanity? They had discovered something even more profound. They were not conquerors. They were not simply survivors. They were connectors, beings capable of finding common ground in the most impossible circumstances. KRAL recalled the early days of human exploration. The terror. The confusion. The absolute certainty that these unpredictable beings would bring chaos to the galaxy. Instead, humans had brought something far more dangerous: hope. "Do you remember," KRAL asked, "when we first thought you were a threat?" Zara laughed. A sound that still had the power to make nearby alien species momentarily pause. We're still a threat. Just not the kind you expected. The threat of human potential was simple, the ability to see beyond current limitations. To transform challenges into opportunities. To connect where others would divide. As the sun of 1,000 worlds set outside the observation deck, the galaxy looked different. Changed. Transformed by a species that was never supposed to leave its own solar system. A species that was never supposed to survive. A species that was never supposed to matter. Humans had rewritten the rules. Again.